Mr. President, there are many women across our nation who will be feeling concerned at last week's Giggle and Tickle outcome. I think the reality is that even before last week's outcome, people have increasingly become more afraid to speak publicly about the push for gender ideology more broadly, but particularly the push for gender ideology in female spaces and sports. Not because it's unimportant, not because it doesn't concern them, but because too often anyone who raises what are legitimate concerns about the safety, privacy, fairness and dignity in female spaces and sports, or to be honest, Mr. President, concerns about gender ideology more broadly are dismissed, silenced, labelled unfairly and often faced with vitriol. Somewhere along the line, we have lost the ability to hold different opinions and for that to be okay, to politely agree to disagree and to debate issues of importance to many women without being criticised of discrimination. Instead, there is now a real sense of vitriol towards anyone who dare question ideology or who advocates for the protection of single-sex sports and spaces in the public sphere. It is one thing for an individual to hold a set of values and beliefs. It is another entirely to thrust that upon everyone else and expect them to conform irrespective of their own values and beliefs to the detriment of others. What we are now seeing is a small minority in society who are wanting access to female spaces and sports and who will relentlessly push for such access at the expense of and to the detriment of women and girls. Gender ideology and ideology in sex-specific areas is not a new issue. This decision last week has just further reinforced how far down the rabbit hole we seem to be going. In recent years, we've seen women's sport come under threat from the competition of transgender athletes. Women and girls should be entitled to compete in sport in single-sex categories. This should be a no-brainer. We know that males have an advantage over women with their physique, strength, speed and stamina. Not only is this an equality issue, it's a safety issue. We have seen ideology prioritised over safety in recent weeks in a proposal that could see as many as half of the toilets and new public buildings designated as gender neutral as a part of the draft update to the National Construction Code. I don't think I've spoken to any woman who has ever said to me, you know what, I don't need a female bathroom, I'm happy to go in with the blokes. It leaves women and girls vulnerable. It risks putting them in harm's way, all for the purpose of virtue signalling. Women and girls should have a right to female-only spaces. The safety of women and girls should not be at the expense of an ideological debate. We should not be told to sit down and be quiet when we are uncomfortable with the presence of a man in a women's-only space. To be quiet when we feel unsafe. For years now, we have watched women's rights and safety be slowly eroded. The world has gone mad when we are facing a reality where women, biological women, are no longer safe to say that biological men should not be in female spaces. That is not a radical position to say. That is not a culture war, that is common sense. For generations, women have fought hard for protected spaces, spaces created because of the biological realities of sex, because women are disproportionately vulnerable to violence, and because privacy and safety matter. These protections were not created to exclude for the sake of exclusions. They were created because women's experiences and vulnerabilities were different. Increasingly, women are telling us they feel these protections are being eroded. When women become afraid to speak about women's rights, something has gone profoundly wrong.